Welcome to Black and Brown Crowns, the show where beautiful Black and Brown women speak about their career experiences. I'm Shyanne, your host, and today we'll be talking to Miss Kellee about how to become a public health specialist. How are you doing, Kellee?
Hello, Shyanne. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I feel honored.
Thank you for joining me today. If you don't mind, let's jump right in. Growing up, did you know that you wanted to be a public health specialist?
No. Growing up, one of my goals and aspirations were to be a pediatrician. So I always wanted to be a baby doctor. I never knew all the steps that it took to be a baby doctor. But, you know, my mom could tell you from elementary school, anytime anyone would ask me what I wanted to be when I grew up, it was always in the field of like helping others, but it was always like a pediatrician.
So then what interests you into becoming a public health specialist?
So, interesting story. So, when I went to college, I went to Westchester University of Pennsylvania, and I initially wanted to do nursing because I'm like, all right, a doctor is going to take a really long time. So, let me try to do nursing. Interesting enough, I never started the nursing program, but I realized after taking anatomy and physiology that maybe that field probably wasn't going to be in my best interest, only because I had to take it twice. Like I didn't realize it was super hard. And at that moment I knew like maybe nursing wasn't going to be my field of choice. So I was speaking to my advisor and she mentioned public health. Now, anyone who is applying to college or know anything about school, you don't hear anything about a public health degree. I didn't know what a public health field or degree would do or what kind of jobs that I could get. But I did start the program and I ended up graduating with undergrad in public health and also obtaining a master's degree in public health. So I actually really love the career, not the career, but the classes and the courses and helping others. And it was kind of like I can work in different settings. So if I wanted to work in a hospital, I still could do that. I could work in an educational setting. So the public health degree was really like an umbrella degree. And there's so many other aspects of public health that you can actually do. So that's why I end up in the field of public health.
Are there any other alternatives into becoming a public health specialist? You mentioned that you have to have a degree, but for those who may not have a degree, do they have to get a degree? Like, how does that work?
So usually in the field of public health, you would have to obtain some type of science degree. Before we get into like my first career out of college, a lot of people start with like psychology degrees and then go back for their master's in public health. But it's not super specific unless you want to go like in the field of epidemiology and like healthcare management. But yes, you would have to obtain a degree in public health in order to have, a job in the field of public health.
Were there any scholarships, fellowships, internships, anything like that pushed you into your public health?
Honestly, I would say so I really love the field of public health. Once I finished my coursework and I started my first internship in the field of public health. So undergrad, I was an intern at the Diabetes Education Center at Penn Hospital in Philadelphia. And that way I got to learn more of like the hospital side of the public health. So I worked with members of the community and educating them in their diabetes management and checking their diabetes sugar weekly. So I worked with like a few interns and also the nurses and public health specialists that work there as well. So that kind of gave me a field of like, okay, so if I wanted to work in a hospital, I can. And if I wanted to work with, people that had diabetes, I can do that as well. So that was really my where I felt like comfortable in the field that I chose, even though you don't really hear too much about public health. You hear more now, but not 6-7 years ago when I was in school. Um, and then I did another externship at Crozier Hospital. So I got to see another side of public health. So I really fell in love with the aspect of helping others and having options in public health and seeing, okay, so there's a few different settings that I actually could work in. So that's kind of really what like made me fall in love, because coursework is cool, but you don't really get a feel of your degree or your career until you're actually gaining those hands-on experiences.
You mentioned that you worked in a hospital setting. Is that the only setting you can work in as a public health specialist, or are there other avenues and other pathways that you can take as a public health specialist?
So you can work in pretty much any setting. So I use hospital because let's go back to me wanting to be a baby doctor. I think that's kind of why also like I was just intrigued of like being, I don't know, feeling important and wearing a white coat. But you can work in a hospital setting. You can work in like nursing home settings, social work settings, educational settings. You can pretty much work in any type of setting with a public health degree, just depending on exactly what you're looking to do, what's your goal, what field or study you would like to do. There's also a research side of public health. So if you just wanted to do research, you're not necessarily education as far as like helping others, you could do that as well. So there's a huge research side of public health actually.
So what do you do? Are you taking the hospital route? Are you taking the education route, the research route? Which are you in?
So currently, I actually got pretty lucky. I'm a public health specialist for a school district, and actually the same school district that I grew up in, so which is cool. And I, through my first career, I was a prevention specialist. So I worked with drug and alcohol education throughout Delaware County, where I went into different school settings and I was able to educate the kids on drug and alcohol prevention programs. So through that, I'm like, wait, I may want to work in a school setting because I like the setup of the school. I like the hours of a school setting. Like, what can I do as a public health degree and specialist in a school? Because I think at that moment, I was like, no, nix the hospital. Like, I want to work 8 to 3:30. I want to have that schedule where you have the days off that, you know, most people don't get off. You have the paid summers off. So I was kind of like weighing my options as far as like what I wanted my future to look like. If I had a family, if I had kids, this honestly would be an ideal kind of schedule for me. So that's why I was kind of like seeing through my old job, okay, how can I get into school with a public health degree? I don't want to be a teacher. I don't really want to, I didn't at the time want to go back to school, but I wanted to utilize the degrees I already had. So then I was linked in with someone that I went to school with, and she told me about a position as a behavior interventionist. Um, and to me, in my mind, that was kind of like my way of just getting in the door of working in a school. So I took a lesser paying job, and as a behavior interventionist, that was actually a really difficult job. You're basically working with students who have emotional disturbances, and that could be uh, mental health, that could be violence, that could be a lot of different aspects of the job, which I still love because I love working with kids and I'm always in the field of helping others. I always go back to that, me wanting to be someone in the community that is known for helping others. That's just my life goal, I guess, or just the pathway that I think that I'm supposed to take. So I then became a behavior interventionist and I did that for a few years. And then a new spot opened up for a public, not necessarily for a public health specialist, but the aspect of my job now, I am the district's public health specialist, but I work more so in like a social work role. So I build those foundations with families. I bridge the gap between community and schools. I help families find outside resources, whether it's mental health resources, whether it's crisis intervention, you know, just any type of resources. If a parent needs uniforms, I can help with that. If they need food for their home, I can find pantries in the community where they can get free food, or grants where they can get, you know, just any resources that they need. So yeah, now I'm still in the role of public health. I'm in the role of helping others. I'm also taking on kind of like a social work. So I learn a different aspect of public health, and I'm in an educational setting. So this is kind of like my ideal. So I have the educational setting where I have like the schedule and the benefits of that, but I'm also still in my field that I went to school with.
Speaking about benefits, you mentioned that you're working with the school, you might have, you know, the 8 to 3 cutoff time for work. What are other benefits working for a school as a public health specialist?
So I'm going to say personal benefits first, which is for me, the schedule, obviously, um, because previously my first job, I mean, my schedule was all over the place. I could work in the mornings, I could work at night, I could work on the weekends. Like, it was really depending on the different events that were taking place in the community where I would have to be at. So having a structured and set schedule is very important for me. So my day is 8 and I end at 4 every day. So 8 to 4, and I get an hour lunch. So that's a huge benefit. I don't work in the summertime, so we work 9 months out of the year. So that is a huge benefit. And I think that people with families or kids, you know, they can spend more time with your kids during the summertime and, you know, go on vacations then. And you kind of get a break, because working in a school is definitely not easy. It has its challenges. But you do have that time in the summer to kind of regroup, spend time with your family. The health insurance, I don't pay for health insurance, so that's a huge benefit. Things that I may not have thought as an undergrad or someone in my early 20s have become pivotal now in my decision making for careers and jobs. So that's also a benefit. There's a lot of support and a lot of knowledgeable people in a school district. So I feel like I work with a great team where we're able to help each other grow and learn. And also, a benefit is being able to grow in the career that you picked. My first job out of college, there was no room to grow. Like I would, yeah, there was no room to grow. Here in the district, you can obtain other education degrees, which I am in school to become a school counselor now. Um, you can take on different skills. Like, there's so many different jobs in a school district I was not aware of, because we only know counselor, principal, teacher, janitor, aides, you know, lunch positions. So I didn't know that there was other aspects and other jobs in a school district. So it has its benefits. And I feel like more people should work in a school district, because you get to help kids, you get to, you know, really guide their transition into college, and they're, you know, just be a pivotal person in their life. They're going to remember you forever. But also, it has its personal benefits too, where if you have a family or not a family, you don't have to have a family, but I'm saying, you know, health insurance and the schedules and the summers off really do help.
When you are at work and not, you know, on vacation during the summer, what are your typical days look like? Are you all day doing resources for families, or are you working with students one-on-one? What does it look like for you?
So right now, since I did transition into the public health role from the behavior specialist, so previously I worked in one school and I handled kind of like all of the behavioral concerns in the school, and I ran like social skills groups. So I was meeting kids, small groups, one-on-one, and throughout the day. Now I have an office. Um, I have an office in one of the admin buildings, and my day-to-day is pretty consistent as far as, I mean, I'm making phone calls all day. Especially now in a pandemic, it's difficult because we need to make sure that we're tracking the students. So sometimes teachers are going to have concerns where, they haven't heard from a student in a couple of days. So, we work together as a team to kind of like follow up with the family, see if there's any resources that they need. Right now, I'm just in the office all day making phone calls, scheduling meetings. I'm in team like case management meetings, just to see how we can better support our students, especially during a pandemic, because it's been wild. Now, I do spend a couple days in a school where I do continue my social skills groups. So I meet with kids in a small group setting, and we learn different social skills. So I work with like K-5. I have groups in kindergarten all the way to 5th grade. So I still enjoy working one-on-one with students. I still meet with students. I still check in with students just because I've built and forged those relationships with them. So I know that, I'm a person that they can always talk to as well. So day to day, I'm in the office all day making phone calls, having meetings, and helping families.
Does that ever become too much for you if you are working with students all day or in the office all day? Does it ever create a burnout situation for you?
I think I've gained a lot of experience as far as self-care from my first career out of college, wanting to be the best and, I just feel like when people come out of college, they want to give their all into a career, right? This is your first job. This is your first opportunity to really show people that you have what it takes to do this job perfectly. So you're going to burn yourself out trying to be the best. You don't really learn that work-life balance until you get older and you realize, wow, my check is still the same. So I need to figure out how I can self-care, take care of myself, make sure I have all my personal needs, and also do a good job at work. So what I told myself is 8 to 4 is work, 8 to 4. So you got me at work, whatever my job is. And then after that, I don't think about it. I'm sorry. Like, it's done. I don't work in a crisis situation where, like, if I was a nurse, maybe I'm on call and I would have to, no, 8 to 4. And then whatever I would choose to do after that is my time, my self-care. It's me time. So I think what I would want to tell people coming out of college is like, I'm not saying don't try and be the best, but also you have to find that balance. So if working out is something that helps you find that balance and to have your personal time, don't stop because of a job. If hanging out with your friends or going on dates or planning trips are ways of self-care, don't stop. Reading, meditating, like just don't stop things in your normal personal life that is going to, that you're replacing with work. Don't do that because you will burn out and it's going to be stressful and not fun. Also, create limits too in your positions because I remember times where I was getting paid 40 hours, but I'm doing like 60 hours worth of work. Like, why am I still at work and my check is not going to be different? So you got to set your own boundaries too. Like, I'm obligated to 40 hours. You're not paying me 41 hours, much less 60 hours. So whatever you need me to do, it has to be done in those 40 hours. So creating boundaries and setting your own limits and self-care. So I would say now I don't have that problem because I put me first. So I'm not burning myself out. And if I do feel like I'm burning out or I need a day, then I take a day. Like, I don't feel bad about taking time off or taking days to myself. Some people save their time. Again, one of the benefits working in a school district, each year you have, for me, I'll give an example, 10 sick days. So take your days. Don't save them. I'm not saying don't save them, but if you need a day, take it. Because I wouldn't want you to go to work and not be in your best mood, handling a crisis situation, and you can't even think clearly. So take your days.
Are there any surprises during your crisis situations or any surprises that come along with the job of being a public health specialist?
So right now, since I'm kind of like in that transition as a public health specialist slash kind of like I'm doing a little social work, we do have crisis protocol. I haven't experienced too much of that, but as a behavior specialist, yeah, there could be crisis every day, and it depends on the student and their need at the time and things that are not identified, such as like mental health conditions. A lot of times kids are not identified early onset too much with certain things. Parents aren't really trying to put their kids on medication at early ages, which I completely understand and agree. So school, especially in elementary school, is kind of like that first transition, seeing kids in structured settings. So if a kid is not used to being in a structured setting, like a school setting, daycare, you can see a lot of behaviors. So yes, I was that person where if a student starts throwing a chair in the middle of class, I had to go and intervene. If a student hit someone, or spat at someone or curse, like there's so many different levels of crisis interventions that, or a crisis that do happen in a school, I would be that person to intervene. So yes, there could be surprises every day because you don't know what necessarily you're walking into or what the need of the student is at that time. One time I did have to stay at work super late because we had to call crisis mobile. So if a student is deemed like they're going to harm themselves or you don't feel safe to send them home, then there are some crisis situations where I would have to wait for a crisis team to come and assess the situation. But overall, there could be surprises at any moment, especially when you're in a school district working with kids.
Do you ever feel prepared when you're going into situations like that? Like you mentioned, there are crisis protocols, but when you're in those moments, do you feel prepared enough, or do you have to have so much experience to feel prepared for a situation like that?
So I'm not going to lie, when I first started as a behavior interventionist, I did not know what it all entailed. I'm not even going to lie. I'm thinking, I don't really know what my thoughts were, but I did not know that it was going to be as physical as it was or has been. Because I'm like, oh snap, like this kid is throwing a chair, like I don't know what to do, like how do I calm them down, or like how do I try to for them not to throw the chair at me. But there are trainings. So every year we have to do a safety cares training so that we learn how to properly de-escalate a situation. We learn how to restrain a student if they are or if they do become physical and aggressive. Now, I would say they help a little bit, but at the same time, when I'm being called, you still don't know what you're getting into. Okay. A teacher may say, this person is agitated right now. Can you just come and take them for a break? Now, when I get down there, now they could be stripped of their clothes. They could be running around the classroom. They could be screaming. They could be crying. So I have to quickly assess the situation. Like, all right, what's my next plan of move? Because I just thought they needed a walk, but now it looks like I'm going to have to intervene or do more of a crisis intervention. Now I feel because I've been in the field for about 5 years now, I do feel prepared because I feel like I know I haven't seen it all, but I've seen a lot. So I feel like I am more prepared now, and we continue those trainings. So every year we have to renew our safety cares training. And if we have questions during those trainings, the facilitators are able to answer it. They have more experience than me, so they can kind of offer that advice on how to proceed with certain situations I may be uncomfortable with. There has been some situations where it's like, yeah, this is a lot. Like, I don't know. So then I would call on other members of my team to help. So, like a principal or a school counselor, we work really close together. So, you know, we're able to come up with some ideas together quickly.
Did you ever have a mentor to help you through navigating navigating? Yep. Navigating
Yeah.
through your thing.
So I feel like I got super lucky. I'm not going to lie, because sometimes when you start a new position and you're with new people, you don't really know the dynamics of the people you're going to meet. You don't know if they're going to be helpful. You don't know if they're going to be like, you know what, this is your job, you figure it out. I got super lucky because the people that I work with, they care so much about their students and their job. Like, they want to make sure whoever comes in, that they're, you know, doing an exceptional job as well, and adding to the team and adding to the students' experiences. So I first met one of my teacher friends. She was like one of the people that really first, you know, showed me hands-on. And even though she was a new teacher, like, she was amazing. Like, she was awesome. She was able to sit with me at times, offer suggestions. We would collab with ideas. Also, my principal is awesome. Like, he is able to, he has so many years of experience. So he has seen it all. So he's able to offer that guidance and that advice. And I'm also teachable. So I want to learn. Like, I don't want to pretend like I know something. I don't want to come in and pretend like I've been doing this for 10 years when I haven't. But I also want to make sure that I'm taking in the knowledge. I take a lot of notes. Even with my position now, I'm always writing down notes in different scenarios. If I'm in a scenario and I'm like, all right, how did I handle it? I'm going to write it down, because maybe next time that could be a reference. Also, the school counselor that I work with, I mean, she's awesome. So I think if you have like a good, solid team around you that's willing to teach you and help you, I think that's needed in any setting, any professional setting. So my advice would be, when you're going into a position, to find at least one person in your field that you can feel like, all right, I can go to you with questions if I have it, like, for a little bit of guidance. So yes, I did have mentors, and I do have mentors, and I'm still learning, I'm still growing, I still don't know it all. But I do have a solid team of people around me that do know it all, and we're able to work together, and I'm still taking my notes. So be teachable. That's important in any setting. You can't go into a job thinking you know it all and you know nothing at all. So be teachable.
That's on period.
You started it.
So you said earlier that, you know, you would have to deal with children who may be agitated one moment and then they're kind of getting physical the next, or you're working with a principal or a counselor. But now that COVID has happened, obviously some of those obstacles or those situations that you had to deal with before, you're not dealing with now. How has COVID changed your career?
I actually just transitioned into my new role this school year. So this is like the first COVID filled school year. Um, so I can't really say how it has changed that. I mean, obviously, I can't go into the buildings as much. I'm not meeting with students as often. My meetings a lot of times are virtual. So that kind of plays a role in the dynamic of like the student teacher kind of relationship. Um, I couldn't imagine necessarily doing my job as a behavior specialist without its challenges and limitations as far as COVID. Now, I will say the smaller class sizes do help, because I feel like a lot of students may be overwhelmed when where there's more kids in the classroom, right? So if you only have 6 students, I think behaviors are on a decline because there's only 6-7 students in a classroom. So the days are much easier. There's not too much demand as far as getting 20 kids together. All right, you got 6, you know what I mean? Like, so I think it's helped in the way where there's smaller class sizes. If we could stay smaller class sizes forever, I think that would help a lot with behavior concerns in students. It doesn't eliminate them, and some students have maybe brought on some behavior concerns because of the pandemic and not being in school every day. So it really depends. But COVID is it's really affecting students, affecting teachers, just everyone that works with kids or just in a school setting. It has its challenges as far as attendance and learning from home. And some kids don't have a quiet place to learn from home. Some kids can't learn at home because they need that structure. They need to come to school. That's like a guaranteed meal for a lot of students, which, people take for granted. That's structure. That's, all right, at least I know I get up Monday through Friday and I can see my friends. Or I'm going to have gym. Like, there's things to look forward to as students. So now, there's so many challenges now because you don't see your friends every day. And if you do, you see them online and you're only learning. Some kids have other siblings in the background that are loud. It just has a lot of limitations. So I think that people should definitely be a little bit more empathetic with the educational system because it's a transition for everyone. So no one has it easy right now.
Wait, so hold up. Have you done anything as a public health specialist yet?
Yeah, I've been doing that since the school started.
So like COVID hasn't really affected, I mean, because you just started.
But it affects as far as like meeting with families. So I can't meet with families face to face. So my meetings are often virtual. A lot of our case management meetings are now virtual. Like, it's affected in that way, but I can't say how drastic it has been because the only variable that's really changing is meeting face to face and buildings and school settings.
Is there anything that you wish you knew before that you know now as a public health specialist?
Well, just in a career, all in all, I wish that my advisor in college gave me more information in the field of public health. I feel like she was just like, all right, well, if you don't want to do nursing, this is another option. Now, I can't totally put that on her because maybe I should have done some more research as well. But I think that she could have given a little bit more guidance, like, oh, these are different things that you could do. Because coming out of college, I'm like, all right, I'm Googling public health jobs. So I'm not really seeing all the different settings that I actually could work in. I'm thinking hospital, nonprofit, small job setting. So I wish I had more knowledge in that. But I would say the biggest thing is like networking. Like, people really need to take networking a little bit more serious because a lot of times it's not the degrees, it's about who you know. It's about getting your foot in that door and seeing an opportunity and growing from there. So I wish I would have obviously still done my degrees, but I think I would have chosen a different path earlier. Like, I would have tried more so networking versus trying to start from the bottom, because you don't necessarily have to if you know the right people, if you make the right connections. And I think I've done a great job with networking because I like the fields that I've chosen, like I've never like applied for any of the jobs that I have. Like, it's all about knowing someone and then interviewing, you know what I mean? So definitely network is very important. So if nothing else from this interview, I'm telling you, self-care and networking, because we are in an age where you can have the same degree, you can have the same no experience as someone else, and because they know them from somewhere else, they're going to choose them over you. And I wish they would change this whole experience thing in jobs, right? Because they tell
Yeah.
people in order to make a good salary, you need this much experience to get this type of job. Well, if people are coming out of college, they don't start off with 5 years experience. All their experience is coursework and externships. So I wish I see that change a little bit in the field, just in our career, but definitely network, because that's kind of where I am now. I was able to move up in a position. Well, first um, I saw a career where I could move around and I could elevate, because that's always the goal, is to obtain a higher position or make more money. And so you have to see, okay, it's cool to work this job now to gain some experience, but ultimately, where do you want to be? So I'm moving slowly, but I'm still moving in my career now. And like I said before, now I'm in school to become a school counselor. So that's just another degree. But that allows me more freedom at work, more money. I'll be, you know what I mean? So it does have its perks as well.
While you were networking and navigating through those circles or speaking to people about like wanting to be in a certain position, how was it being a Black woman asking those questions? Like, did you have any strategies that you took when you were having those conversations with those people?
That's a really good question, especially because the school district that I work with or work for is predominantly white. Um, and I'm not going to lie, I really think that they saw how I interacted with the students. Like, okay, I'm a Black woman, but I'm on my stuff. Can I curse? No, I can't curse. I'm on my stuff. Like, I'm working hard. And I know, like, from young, we're taught, especially I remember my mom saying, like, because you are a Black woman, you're going to have to work 10 times harder. And that's not a lie. Like, that is very much true because, again, or it could be a lack of networking. So coming into it, I mean, everyone that I work with pretty much is Caucasian. And I think, not that I was waiting for anyone to see potential in me, but I think they really just saw my drive and my focus and things that I brought to the table and how I was a positive influence on Black kids, because now they have someone that's a staff member, that's an adult in the building that looks like them. I'm a Black woman. There's been instances where kids are crying, young Black girls are crying because their hair isn't done that day, and they come and get me. And I love that. Like, I don't feel singled out. I feel like that's why I'm here. Like, yes, use me as a reference, because now, you know, I want the kids to feel inclusion. I want the kids to have someone that looks like them that they can go to, they can talk to. Maybe it's not going to be relatable for another teacher, but Miss Greene is here. Like, go talk to Miss Greene. You want to talk about hair? Like, I do all that. Like, and I try to just be a positive influence in Black women. So it was never hard for me to let it be known that I wanted change or that I needed more money, because I feel like I built those relationships first. Like, you build those relationships first. You don't just go in like, oh, all right, these are my demands. No, you forge those relationships. You establish those bonds. And when they see potential, or just anyone, it doesn't matter the color, but I understand, I understand that we're talking color based, but I'm saying just any field you go into, you make those relationships. And then you can make some demands. You can let it be known, like, all right, I need to move around, or I need to elevate, or I need, like, give me some suggestions on how I can progress working here, because if not, then I'm going to have to seek other employment somewhere else. And I feel like once you had that respect, like people will make it happen, because if you're valued at a company or at an organization or at a job, anything, they want to keep you, because it's more expensive having to keep replacing you, if that makes sense. Hiring new people is not ideal all the time. Okay. Like, people want people that have the knowledge already to move around, okay, and elevate, go to another position or learn a new skill and be able to just transition that way. They don't want to keep hiring new people and teaching new people, and then you have to guess whether they're going to be a good employee or a good asset to the team or not. It's always a gamble, and they, trust me, they do look at that. So be a good asset to the team, to yourself, and establish those relationships, and then make your demands.
While you were navigating through those different conversations, did you see other Black and brown women as public health specialists, or were you one of the first within your community?
So technically, I'm probably the first in my community. This was a way where, like, I think my district saw value in me, and they wanted me to stay. And they saw that I brought something to the team. I'm a positive Black woman in the community. So they wanted to create probably a position for me to stay. So in my previous fields of work, yeah, there are actually it's pretty diverse. Like, I would say public health is a pretty diverse career. I have a couple friends that are in public health, well, at least one. We met at Westchester, and she works in the field of public health. And I feel like through my experiences, there are a lot of women of color that are taking the public health route as well. Now, I don't know for the same reasons as far as like alternatives versus like doctors, but that's a plus. So my first internship experience, there was a white nurse, and then there was also a woman of color. I don't think she was a nurse, but she had a public health degree, so she worked in that aspect. So I will say I do see a good number of women of color in the field of public health. Yes.
That's good, because I don't know anything about public health, and Chi, she's my cousin. So she's the only public health specialist that I know. But it's really nice to know that there are options out there for Black and brown women to come up in these positions. If you want to go into, as you were speaking about earlier, into a hospital setting, but might not want to go the doctor route. If you want to go into the educational setting, but not want to be a teacher or principal or something like that, like, this is a nice way and a nice job to kind of, I guess, finagle your way through to getting where you want to be and helping the population that you want to help.
And that's a good thing. Public health is the umbrella term. There's epidemiology, there's healthcare management, there's so many different avenues that you can go. There's research. So whatever you're interested in, you can find in public health as far as that. Even social work, or if you want to work for the state or the government, like, there's so many different career paths that I'm so happy that I did pick the field of public health, because let's say I went to school for teaching. I mean, there's not much leeway that you can use with a teaching degree without being a teacher. You know what I mean? So you would have to go back to school for more classes or more education. Public health, as long as you're trying to help somebody, you can find a job. Especially now with the pandemic, I'm like, this is a perfect, honestly, time, even though we're in a tragic state of emergency in this world right now. But my public health is just like, ooh, I'm sure there's so many jobs that are going to open up for people that have public health degrees, because we are in a public health crisis, like this whole world is. So if you have a public health degree, you definitely should not be unemployed. Well, I don't want to say that because I don't want to be insensitive, but look in the future. I think in the next couple of years, there's going to be research based about COVID, and there's going to be educational programs on COVID and the pandemic, those are all public health jobs. So definitely be on the lookout for that, because that's honestly that was my first thought in this whole thing. I'm like, wow, I have a master's in public health, and we're in a public health crisis. So I think I would be good. I'm a good person to have on your team, okay?
Is there any other advice that you have for people interested in the public health field? I know you mentioned it throughout the interview, but is there any more like pointers for people to tune into?
Are there any more pointers? So I'm going to say go where you're valued, because that matters. I think there are situations where I probably would have taken lesser paying jobs because I was happier there. Like that, to me, that makes all the difference. So go where you're valued, especially by the people, because I've been in situations where people lack respect, and they feel like if that's your job, then I don't want anything to do with it. You suffer and work 60 hours yourself. So no, we're not doing that. It's 2021. We have to take care of our mental health. We have to go where we're valued, where we can grow. Like, we're not just staying in positions and jobs just for a check. Like, no, there has to be more that can be offered. And I'm going to say that coming out of college, be eager, but obviously don't burn yourself out. Like, state your boundaries, set your limits, because people will take advantage of you. They know, oh, you get someone out of college, you pay them a little bit of money, and they're going to do whatever you ask. Like, no. So if I'm getting paid for 40 hours, then whatever job that you have for me needs to stick within that 40 hours, because I'm not going to veer too much over that without getting compensated. I'm no longer in college. This is not an externship. This is my career path that I'm choosing. So go where you're valued. Also self-care. And I know that that's so redundant now, but I really think just in my personal spiritual journey, like, self-care has helped me so much. Learning so much about myself and putting myself first and my mental health and just every aspect of myself, I think has like catapulted me into being like just such a happier person. Like, I remember times where it's just like certain things just weren't worth it. Like, oh my God, do I have to work here? Like, I can't do this. But when you learn things about yourself and you set those boundaries and those limits, whether it's with families, relationships, friendships, at work, wherever, you will be such a happier person. So for me now, meditating, reading, watching podcasts, like, I do things more that I like to do than not. I do work a lot, but I've been able to create that work-life balance pretty well. And when I get overwhelmed, then I just won't do it. I will take off of work. I'm not going to hang out with my friends. Like, I'm going to get myself together so that I'm good for myself. If I'm not good for myself, then I'm not good for anybody else. And that's just not a good situation. Get a mentor, some person at your job or someone that works in the field that you could talk to and get advice from. I think that makes all the difference. Someone that's positive, someone, that can be influential to you and your work experience. So that's important. And I had another one, but it just left my mind. But those are just different aspects. I feel like that just create a well-rounded professional. You're not going to have it all figured out at 21, at 22 when you graduate. At 25, you're not going to have it figured out. But I think once you're in the right situation with the right people and the right team, and you know more about yourself, then you're able to kind of move more like chess versus checkers, because you feel like you have to, because you need a job.
They're both still mind games. But okay.
Networking. That's what I want to say. Networking. Okay. Like, seize opportunities, talk to people, let them know that what your interests are, because they're going to keep you in mind. There's jobs that called me because, oh, I know that you, whatever, would you be interested in this position? Like, that's networking. I don't have to go out and apply to 1,000 jobs if I make these different connections. And I think that makes all the difference, because sometimes it's more than education. There's people without degrees that are coming in making six figures already, not by what they know, but about who they know. So please take networking seriously. Join networking groups. Again, talk to people, forge those relationships. It's important.
Where can viewers find more information about being a public health specialist?
Google. Like, it's 2021. All the information you have is at your fingertips. Like, honestly, anything that you want to know about anything is on Google, okay? YouTube has a lot of information. There's people that are public health professionals that are literally giving you game and giving you information for free. YouTube, talk to people. That's all I can say, honestly. I'm not going to tell you to sit down and read books or do degrees, but talk to people in the field. If you want to know more information about public health, Google. So Google different organizations. What do they offer? What kind of degree do you need to work there? What kind of positions do they have? YouTube, because I learned how to do my hair from YouTube. So I feel like YouTube, my mom jokes and say YouTube University, but I swear, like, YouTube is its own schooling because you can have the information there. Okay, so I'm sure you can YouTube public health specialist. What can you do? And there's going to be a 50-minute video on someone giving you free game that's in public health, that's giving it to you for free. So utilize your resources. We're in the 21st century. Come on.
All right, Miss Kellee, to get stuff done and close this interview out, I want to throw this last question in there. How do you describe your career experience in 3 words?
Okay, curveball, Shyanne. My career in 3 words. Hardworking. I would say I would say passion would be another one. You can't do this if there's no passion to help people, because it's not going to work. And also patience. When you're working with people, when you're working with the public, when you're working with kids, you need to practice patience, okay? If you don't have patience, if you are a short fuse, if you cannot handle facial expressions and you can't handle people yelling at you, and this is not for the lighthearted, okay? Patience. And that's probably the first one, because you can't work with kids and their parents if you don't have patience. Thank you so much for having me today, Shyanne. I really am honored. I'm so proud of you and what you're doing. This is like a great platform that I feel like we need, especially in 2021. Like, we need more women supporting women, women of color. Like, we are Black women and just women of color, like, we are so educated, and there's so many statistics backing that as far as degrees and fields. Like, we need to push other women.
Well, thank you, Miss Kellee, for that. Love you, girl. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel to get updated videos on what career I'll be speaking about next. And please follow us on social media. Again, I want to thank Miss Kellee for sitting down and talking to me, and I'll see you guys next time.